This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Today we'll discuss about the intracutaneous fistulas. So, what are the possibilities for the formation of the intracutaneous fistula, and what is the treatment for intracutaneous fistula, and what are the various intracutaneous fistula? So, what is fistula? In general, we know fistula is generally connection between the two surfaces, between two epithelium. So, it is defined as an abnormal communication between two epithelialized surfaces. So, the opening from one organ to the other organ is the connection between it is called as the fistula. So, intracutaneous fistulas means entero means bowel and cutaneous means skin. So, connection between the bowel and the skin is called as the intracutaneous fistula. So, various types of fistulas are present: thoracocutaneous fistula, pleurocutaneous fistulas, and other type of fistulas are present. So, dealing with basing upon the underlying organ and the overlying skin, it is named accordingly. So, classification. So, anatomically classified into internal and external. And internal is two organs of same or different system, that is enteroenteral, enterovesical, and enterocolic. So, and external is to the gut or body surface. So, gastrocutaneous and duodenocutaneous, enterocutaneous. So, you can see the connection between the stomach and the skin, or duodenum and the skin, or any other small bowel and large bowel to the skin. So, it is named accordingly. So, first we go for the accordingly. First, we give the classification name basing upon the underlying organ from where the fistula arises. So it is and it is anatomically, again it is classified into simple or direct and complicated. So what is complicated? We will be having multiple tracks from the same side to the external opening. So there will be single internal opening and there will be multiple external openings. So connection with more than one or more than one viscous, singular more than one viscous, and drainage into an associated abscess cavity. So physiologically, it is classified into high output, moderate output, and low output. Basing upon this, the treatment varies. So high output, more than 500 ml per day; moderate output, 200 to 500 ml per day; and low output, less than 200 ml per day. So generally, we go for low output fistulas, we go for direct surgeries, and moderate and high output, basing upon the type of output, that is either liquid or solid. If it is liquid output, then we have to convert it into solid type of output, and we have to reduce the output, and then we go for the surgery, that is closure of the fistula. And high output, generally we go for the different type of management. So etiological classifications, spontaneous. So we have a mnemonic over here, that is friends of fistula. So friends is foreign body, that is if there is any underlying foreign body, then there will be connection between the internal organ and to the external surface. So it is finding an other route for transportation of the content. So the F in friends stands for foreign body, and R for radiation, and E for any inflammation. Ischemic bowel diseases and diverticular diseases, and any appendicitis, malignancies, and duodenal ulcer perforation, and actinomycesis. And post-operatively, so the operations for any perforation cases, the patient presents with perforation, then we have, if we don't do any proper closure of the perforation, then there will be formation of the tract. In case of any acute intestinal obstruction, there will be formation of the tract, that is diversion of the content from the bowel to the external organ. So if there is any intestinal malignancy, there will be obstruction of the bowel underneath, and the above the obstruction, there will be communication from the organ to the skin, and adhesive lysis, and blunt and penetrating abdominal trauma. Congenital, there will be tracheoesophageal fistulas, and rectovaginal and umbilical fistulas, and traumatic, there will be blunt and penetrating trauma of abdomen, chest and perineum. Etiology. So disease of the bowel extending to the surrounding surfaces. Basing upon the etiology, that is the classification varies. So if there is any extraintestinal disease involving, otherwise normal bowel will be present. And trauma to the normal bowel, including inadvertent of the or missed enterotomies, and anastomotic disruption following surgeries for a variety of conditions such as perforation, obstruction, or any malignancies. We go for resection and anastomosis. If there is no proper anastomosis, there will be formation of the fistula. So, small intestinal fistulas are most common type of gastrointestinal fistulas that are encountered, and most serious report, that is 70 to 90% of small intestinal fistulas occur after an operative procedures. So maximum they occur only post-operatively. So pre-operatively, in case of only malignancies, we see maximum time of cases we see in case of malignancies only. So what are the factors influencing fistula healing? Healing of the fistula, that is closure. Malnutrition, infection, and hypotension, anemia, hypothermia. There is any poor oxygen delivery in case of posterior side, and poor mobilization, improper handling. There is high tension of the sutures, or if there is any ischemia of the bowel, and if there is no proper hemostasis. Okay, these are the factors influencing. So nutritional characteristics suggested to the increase the risk of anastomotic breakdown. That is, there is the patient is having after post-operatively, the patient is having weight loss of 10 to 15% of total body weight over 3 to 4 months. Then there will be giveaway of the sutures, and serum albumin, if it is less than 3 mg per deciliter, that is normal albumin rate is 2.8 to 4.4, some around 5.1. So if the albumin is less than 3, then there will be improper healing, and less proteins are delivered to the bowel, and so the fistula formation is more prone for occurrence, and transferring is less than 220 mg per deciliter. And if the patient is on immunosuppressants, that is mostly in case of malignancies, patient is given immunosuppressants. If in case of any HIV, or if there is any immunosuppressive diseases, the patient will have more common complication is fistula formation. And pathophysiology, fluid and electrolyte imbalance, and malnutrition, sepsis, and skin irritation and excoriation. So if there is any electrolyte imbalance in the treatment, if the patient is having an electrolyte imbalance, the patient will have more prone for occurrence of the fistula. In case of malnutrition also, and in case of skin irritation and excoriation, more common causes. So electrolyte content of the body fluids. So these are the normal electrolyte contents: saliva, how much sodium, how much potassium, how much chlorine, and how much bicarbonate is present. So basing upon this also, fistula treatment is managed. So predictive factors for spontaneous closure. What are the favorable and unfavorable causes? They are divided upon the origin, etiology, output, nutrition, sepsis, bowel state, fistula, and most common sites and treatment site. That is origin. If it is oropharyngeal or esophageal, duodenal, or jejunal and colonic, then it is more favorable for treatment. Unfavorable is gastric, lateral duodenal, and ileal. So if the patient is having any gastric fistulas, they will have less chances for healing spontaneously. So etiology, basing upon the type of condition, that is post-operative appendicitis and diverticulitis, and in case of malignancy or inflammatory bowel diseases. So output, low output is favorable, high output is not favorable. And nutrition, if the patient is well nourished, transfusion is greater than 200 mg, and malnourished, if it is less than 200 mg, unfavorable. Sepsis, basing upon the sepsis also, fistula is treated, and the state of bowel. In the healthy adjacent tissue, intestinal continuity and absence of obstruction, and that is adjacent bowel, and large abscess and bowel discontinuation and previous irradiation. You can actually screenshot this slide. Okay. And time to closure. So esophageal fistulas are generally closed within 15 to 25 days, and duodenal fistulas they are closed after 30 to 40 days. After when the factors are favorable only, then we have to do closure. If the factors are unfavorable, then we should not do closure. We should not attempt for closures. A small bowel, it is for 40 to 60 days. So this is one of the picture representation in the abdomen of fistula site, where there is visible bowel content also, and there is a granulation tissue with slough around it, and there is excoriation around the fistula site. Okay, this is the post-operative wound dehiscence case, where the wound is given away and with fistula formation. So management, we have to re-establish the bowel continuity. The reduction of the fistula output, that is by giving excess of fluids. Then, so ability to achieve the oral nutrition. The sepsis and mostly the malnutrition should be achieved by oral purpose only. So what are the management phases? So there are five phases, that is recognition, investigation, decision, definitive management, and healing. So recognition or stabilization should be done from within the 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours. And investigations we have to do within the 7 to 10 days. We have to complete the investigations and then manage the case. So within 6 weeks, we know whether to operate the case or to postpone or to maintain the fistula output. And definitive management is done after 6 weeks on. Mostly at the 4th to 6th week, we go for the definitive management. And healing is after closure, 5 to 10 days. For complete healing will occur with oral nutrition only. And recognition and stabilization. So resuscitation, control of sepsis, electrolyte depletion, provision of nutrition, control of fistula drainage, and local skin care and protection. Clinical presentation. It is recognized from 5th to 10th days post-operatively, abdominal tenderness, fever, shock, and prolonged ileus, erythema of wound, drainage of the enteric material through the abdominal wounds or through an existing drains, leukocytosis. Confirmation can be obtained by oral administration. Okay, resuscitation, we have to achieve the normal blood volume, correction of the electrolytes and acid bases, and plasma uncoated pressure should be restored. And control of sepsis. Management of the local wound infections. Drainage if intra-abdominal collections are there, we have to do open incisional and drainage procedures. Laparotomy if there is any necrotizing fasciitis, cellulitis, or any collections or any disruption of the anastomosis. And antibiotics as per that post-operatively, and central venous pressure only after 24 hours of drainage. So skin care. The fistula side, the skin around the fistula will be edematous and excoriated. There will be burning type of pain because of the severed nerves. Local sensory nerves are severed a lot. And the goals of skin care are to contain the effluent and patient independence and mobility. So what are the skin barriers? Soft, solid wafers, that is pectin-based sheets, and powders, that is Caraya-based or pectin-based powders are sprayed, and paste is that is silver ointment, Silverex ointment paste are present, or potassium manganate paste, and sprays and wipes, and ointment and creams that are zinc and petroleum based, that is Vaseline like that, we can apply around the excoriated skin. And technique of skincare. So wound post dressings, so 1 or 2 pieces of design, and clip closure of urostomy type, and maybe a bedside bag or suction catheter. So these are the various type of this is the fistula with the skin excoriation around, and the application of the ointment around the application of zinc paste and the petroleum paste products and the Caraya based powders around the fistula site. So this is the ileostomy site. Above the black color mark is ileostomy site, and the below one is the fistula site, and there is the wound, open wound. So this is the ileostomy bag, the last picture. So there is an we have kept an ileostomy bag that is around the even around the fistula side, so that the patient will have a leakage of the fistula. So some drainage. So fistula, for fistula draining with open abdominal loose, large bore drains or sumps are present. High pressure suctions are present. So VAC. This removes the chronic edema leading to VAC is vacuum assisted closure. It removes the chronic edema leading to increased localized blood flow. So cystoscopy with fibrin glue injection. This also helps to close within 2 to 30 days. And dry dressings are also done. This is a sump ports where we have present, and this is about the feeding sump based mechanism of closure. We have put the vac dressing along with it, and then continuous drainage is done. So reduction of fistula output, restrict hyperosmolar fluids, encourage the electrolyte mix, anti-secretory agents are present, that is proton pump inhibitors, somatostatin are activated, and anti-motility agent, that is loperamide and codeine. So these are the somatostatin lab, that is the and reduce rate gastric emptying, inhibit gallbladder contractions. These are some trials of octreotide and somatostatin. So how to reduce the fistula output? So infliximab in Crohn's disease and oral tacrolimus in Crohn's disease. So infliximab and tacrolimus, most commonly fistulas are seen in Crohn's disease. That is, multiple openings will be present. And nasogastric tube should be removed if there is no obstruction. And fistula is a low in intestinal tract. So nutritional management, either enteral or parenteral type of nutrition is given through the central line. So these are the studies. And these are general guidelines, that is 25 to 32 kilocalories of per kg per day is given for a ratio of 150:1. Okay, patients should receive 3000 to 5000 non-protein calorie per day, other than normal receiving amount. So patient's daily protein requirement is 1.2 to 2 gram per kg, and fluid requirement is 30 ml per kg per day. That is in excess. And electrolyte requirement, other than normal, we have to give sodium, that is 70 to 100 milliequivalents, potassium 70 to 100 milliequivalents, magnesium 15 to 20, and calcium 10 to 20. So recommended nutritional support, that is protein 1 to 1.5 kg per day, and usually parenteral, that we give for 1.5 to 2.5. So we have to give more for parenteral, and calorie based upon the type of output. And lipids, that is central, we give 20 to 30%, and also parenteral the same amount. Vitamins we have to supply for vitamin C and vitamin A also. Vitamin A, vitamin C is given, and minerals usually not needed. And vitamin K we have to give every week 10 mg. So what is the strategy for total parenteral nutrition? We have to supply the amount of protein, calorie, lipids, and vitamins. So these are the amount. So in high output, we have to give more amount compared to that of the low output. So low output, we have known that less than 200 ml, and high output greater than 500 ml. So they may be needing more amount of calories and vitamins and minerals compared to low amount. Okay. So these are the Benedict equation. So it's not required for you. So total parenteral nutrition indications, there is given in case of to obtain enteral access, in case of high output fistula, and GI intolerance with enteral nutrition, multiple unfavorable factors, that is ileus and obstruction. So it is not proven well in mortality reduction in ECF. So these are the rates of total parenteral nutrition, not that much required. So patient monitoring. So clinically, we monitor the patient daily by his sense of well-being, his graded activities, his vital signs, and weight, that is by measuring the input and output. Daily we send for the normal laboratory profile, that is albumin, electrolytes, RFT, LFTs, and lipid profiles. So what are the complications of total parenteral nutrition? That is catheter tip malposition, arterial laceration, hemothorax, subclavian and superior vena cava thrombosis, thrombophlebitis, catheter embolism. So septic catheter related sepsis is seen. Metabolic changes, that is acute hyperglycemia or hypoglycemia. Electrolyte abnormalities are seen, with fluid overlapping should be maintained. Hyperlipidemia is present. and chronic metabolic bone disease, alteration, bile composition. So internal nutrition. So nasogastric, nasoenteric, and fistuloclysis is these are the types of the enteral nutrition. And benefits of the enteral nutrition include trophic effects on the bowel, stimulate hepatic protein synthesis, and improve the immune and hormonal barrier functions, decline infective rate and metabolic complications, and they are inexpensive. There are 4 functions of the functional bowel, and distal patency is required. So lipid formula absorbed more efficiently than the normal solid saline based formula. Okay. So what are the investigations to be done within the 7 to 10 days? That is, precise the anatomical location, if there is any aqueous cavity, and the condition of the adjacent bowel, and if there is any distal obstruction, and also etiological disease process. So radiological contrast, if you give fistulography, we see the site of the fistula present, and the barium transit study shows the fistula arising from the bowel. Okay. So the arrow marks show the site of the fistula. So this is the connection between the skin and the small bowel, large bowel. So gastrocutaneous fistula. These are the MRI studies showing the from the gastric arising from the stomach to the opening to the skin. So we have seen the arrow marks from the stomach to the skin, opening to the skin. So with complete ulceration and opening. So this is the case of wound lesions. They show the gastroduodenoscopy and demonstrate both in presence of fistula. Colonoscopy, fistula is usually not visible, but presence of disease can be demonstrated. After 10 to 6, we evaluate whether to patient to be operational conservative management. The nose is closure after 4 to 6 weeks. The patient will be referred for surgery. So unfavorable characteristics, uncontrolled sepsis, urgent drainage of sepsis, and generally very poor condition in case of abscess, in case of malignancies. Okay, 90 to 95% will be spontaneous and close typically do so within 5 weeks of operation. Okay, operation during 10 days to 6 weeks, diagnosis of common complications. Seen in around 6 months. Okay, window period. So 7 to 12 days most from the most recent laparotomy. Within the window period, severity of adhesion are usually milder and repeat laparotomy with the intent of diverting or repairing the fistula. Okay. Why should we not operate outside the window period? Because the risk of fistula formation and revascularization of the small fistulas. So if operation occurred outside the window, it is difficult to put the gastrostomy tube and get out. And it differs any treatment of repeat laparotomy up to 4 to 6 months. And definitive management include nutritional parameters, free of sepsis, well-healed abdominal wall with inflammation, prophylactic antibiotic, tapering of tube, operative approach. That is whether transfers or midline. Or refunctionalization. So free of all adhesion, bowel should be free of all adhesion. So drainage of any abscess should be done and relieve any obstruction. So dissection and adhesive. Start with at least dense tip and sharp dissection, wet laparotomy pads, saline injection, and extrafacial dissection. So repair enterotomies include Heneke-Mikulitz type of enterotomy. So we should prepare any serosal test by Lambert sutures using 5-0-proline. So best results are with definitive dissection and management, anastomosis, and should be half circumference should be treated by dissection and anastomosis, greater than half circumference. Direct radiograph the duodenal fistula is not advised. Tube duodenostomy to prevent duodenal stump blowout, that is a complication, and the proximal diverting stoma and tube enterostomy, and mental flap to prevent fistulization, stoma with mucous fistula or externalization. Protective diverting stoma, proximal to anastomosis, secure closure of the abdominal wall over the fistula site, and decompressive gastrostomy, post-op NG tube decompression, feeding jejunostomy, and post-op continuation of the nutrition. These are our healing factors that promote healing of the fistula. So we see the fistula arising from the gastric to the exterior. We have opened the abdominal wall and exercised the fistula. So these are the other images. That is the opening of the fistula site, opening at the fistula in the stomach region. So this is the proper closure technique. We have to go for the fistula in high output fistula after 4 to 6 weeks. So with an ileostomy tube placed on the right side. So these are the types of closure methods. So this is the other type of the fistula. So this is about the excoriation of the skin around the abdominal wall distance. So healing, ensure the patient is fully receives the nutritional support and adequate protein and calories. Parental and internal supplementation and overlapping. Continuous NG feeding tube until he achieves 1500 kilocalories. While feeding with 1 week with soft diet. Zinc supplementation, cyclic feeding, and psychological and emotional support. Late complication, short bowel syndrome, stricture and partial obstruction at fistula site, esophageal strictures after prolonged nasogastric stomach decompression, and neuropsychiatric problems. So how to prevent fistula? In case of pre-operative, in case of perforation and intestinal obstruction, prophylactic antibiotics and bowel preparation should be done. That is polyethylene glycol administration. It is a bacterial load from 10 to the power of 12 to 15. And enteral non-absorbable antibiotics should be used to be reduced. And prophylactic IV antibiotic at time of induction and post-op continuation of the same antibiotic. So hydration to prevent hypotension and normal blood circulation, proper anastomosis, precise hemostasis, selection of the proper needle size suture, and a mental covering if possible. So and also desk space obliteration with light vision, proper drain, and drains should be kept away from the anastomotic side. So these are about the intracutaneous fistula. Okay, thank you.